Do you mind if we go into this article?
Yeah, sure.
Incredibly written. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I highlighted, made some notes, and I brought some boards, if anything you wanted to show to kind of highlight the points. So when I read this, I wrote 3 things down here on the side, quotes on what you said in here. One, you said, most capitalists don't know how to divide the economic pie well, and most socialists don't know how to grow it as well, okay? Then you said, meaning capitalists kind of maybe are like, hey, let me go compete, I want it all. And socialists like, well, I don't really know how to grow my $1,000, $10,000. Fair. 2, one's income growth results from one's productivity growth, which results from one's personal development. This leads me to one of the points you'll make about education, which I want to cover. And then last one I caught here was, I believe that all good things taken to an extreme become self-destructive and everything must evolve or die. And that these principles now apply to capitalism. Do you believe the basic fundamentals of capitalism is an evergreen philosophy?
I'm a professional capitalist. Capitalism has made my life what it is, and I love capitalism. When you use the word evergreen, as I said there, I think everything needs to evolve. Everything needs to look at its problems and say, what are its problems, and change. And if it doesn't look at its problems and change, it is in danger of dying. And so when I look at capitalism now, and I go into this, I hope anybody who's in this interview will take the time to read this so that they don't make a stereotypical view.
Highly recommend you read the article, highly. I'll put the link below as well.
Okay, thank you. But there are certain outcomes. And those outcomes are things like, is this a country of the things I grew up with? Is this a country of equal opportunity? Can we share the notion? What is our overarching principle? Can we share it? Just like you described when you came from Iran. I think this is a country in which it was fabulous in being able to bring people without prejudice from anywhere in the world, and they can really be citizens here in a way where, based on their opportunity and their good behavior. But in addition, the thing that I grew up with and I always believed was most important was equal opportunity. So if I would say, what is America? It's a country of equal opportunity. And circumstances have changed. This was not because of evilness of anybody, but circumstances have changed, having to do with combination of things, having to do with technologies replacing jobs in certain types of jobs, having to do with going global and the workforce being a global workforce where others will, in those jobs, produce it outside the United States and bring it in. Having to do with monetary policy, which means that the central banks buy financial assets, which benefits those who have financial assets relative to those. Having to do the way the Constitution is even written as regarding who is responsible for education.
State or federal.
It's a state issue by the Constitution, and it is, and so then you would say, as I examined in this, I just wanted to see the differences. So I carved it away. I want to look at what the bottom 60% of the population, what their lives are like, and separated it from the top 40% because the averages are misleading. And really that's almost like an 80-20 thing. In other words, the bottom 80% relative to the top 20 because that other group is basically similar to the bottom. And it's not an environment in which we can say that we are striving well for equal opportunity. Okay, opportunity. Because in that top 40%, the average per capita amount of money spent on a child's education is 5 times that in the lower 60%. And so if you look at the outcomes, not put the outcomes of income aside for a bit, but just even deal with productivity and usefulness. And you look at the tragedy of not being able to get adequate number of books in places or adequate teachers. And then you say, is that productive and is it fair? It's not productive because you're losing an education of a large percentage of the population, the proper education, the proper care. We also have family issues. Families are breaking apart. In other words, like I said, I had the benefit of two parents who loved me and took care of that. In some of these cases, that you have a problem of that there's not good family guidance, and that's a whole social issue, but it becomes a spiral. And so I think the question is, are we going to look at that well, and how do we deal with it in a nonpartisan, ideological way, right?
So, okay, so the whole part we're talking about kids being raised without married parents, I think 1960, 73% were, today's 38%, that don't have both, and the number is obviously higher than it's ever been today.
And I'm not just saying married. Maybe you live unmarried, or maybe there are different kinds of forms of households. But I am saying the guidance in somewhere of a loving person, at least,
right,
or two better, for the care of those children is an important determinant. That and basic education, these are important determinants.
So you think a lot of the references you make here goes to 30s, and referencing how, the top 1% in the 30s versus today, you show this, that the top 1% in the 30s versus today, top 1% income share has the same amount as the bottom 90%, and the last time it was like that in the 30s. Are you kind of suggesting that we may be facing what happened in the 30s here soon, or no?
Yes, I'm saying
okay, so that is what
I'm saying there are three major divisions, okay? Three major forces. And that force, which I think I emphasize the opportunity gap, not just the wealth gap, but they both matter. If you look at history across countries, across time frames, and you say when there's a large income and wealth gap and you have an economic downturn, you have a dangerous fight on your hands. You have a dangerous set of circumstances. History has taught us that.